What if I told you one man sold an entire international airport? That didn't even exist. No runways, no terminals, no blueprint, nothing. And yet, he walked away with nearly $250 million. This isn't fiction. He sold an airport that didn't exist. Not just any airport, but a fake international airport supposedly backed by a country's government. The price tag? $242 million. This is the true story of Emmanuel Nwude, the man behind one of the largest financial scams in world history. A man who didn't just fool a bank, he fooled an entire financial system. And the most shocking part? He got away with it for years. This wasn't an email scam. It happened in the pre-internet era, long before phishing, long before firewalls, when you could pick up a landline, speak like a government official, and transfer millions of dollars, no questions asked. Let's unpack how Emmanuel Nwude pulled it off, and why the system failed to stop him. In 1995, a prestigious call was made from Lagos, Nigeria to São Paulo, Brazil. On the other end of the line was Nelson Sakaguchi, a managing director at Banco Noroeste, one of Brazil's most respected banks. The caller introduced himself as Paul Ogwuma, the central bank governor of Nigeria. He had an offer. Nigeria, he said, was launching a major infrastructure project, a brand new international airport in the rapidly developing capital city of Abuja. The government was looking for private investment. This was a chance to get in early on a project backed by state guarantees. And for Banco Noroeste, a potential 500% return in under 5 years. But there was more. Because Sakaguchi was among the first to be approached, the governor was prepared to offer him a $10 million commission as a facilitator. It was irresistible. Sakaguchi was intrigued, flattered, and excited. A $250 million investment into a country with growing GDP, huge population, and a strategic location. It looked like a golden opportunity. But here's the truth. Paul Ogwuma never made that call. The man on the line wasn't a government official. He wasn't even part of the Nigerian central bank. He was a former bank director with a taste for fraud and a talent for deception. His name was Emmanuel Nwude. Before the scam, Emmanuel Nwude was a respected banker. He had served as director of Union Bank of Nigeria, one of the country's leading commercial institutions. With access to privileged information, high-level contacts, and an understanding of financial systems, he wasn't just another con artist. He was someone who knew exactly how banks operated. But Emmanuel wasn't content with his status or salary. He wanted more, millions more. And he didn't want to earn it. He wanted to take it. He recruited a team of 5 bankers, insiders, and skilled impersonators. Together, they created a script, built props, forged documents, and crafted one of the most believable illusions ever pulled in the world of white-collar crime. They set their sights on foreign banks, especially those eager to invest in developing markets. Their weapon? A completely fabricated investment opportunity. Their disguise? The Nigerian government itself. The scam was elaborate. Every detail was meticulously planned. The group created fake identities, including a non-existent director of financial planning for the Nigerian Ministry of Aviation, Touristia William. They wrote letters on forged Nigerian government stationery, signed with fake official signatures, and even used real Nigerian government fax lines to send their investment offers. They told potential investors that the Nigerian government was developing a new international airport in Abuja, an ambitious project designed to transform the nation's infrastructure. The story aligned perfectly with real-world headlines. Abuja had recently become the country's new capital, and the government was indeed investing in infrastructure. So when the letters landed on desks in Switzerland, Hong Kong, and Brazil, they didn't raise suspicion. In Brazil, they hit gold. Sakaguchi read the offer and took the bait. He replied, expressing interest. That's when Emmanuel Nwude made his next move. Banco Noroeste at the time was a respected but relatively small bank by international standards. Based in São Paulo and majority owned by the Simonson and Cochrane families, it had grown in Brazil and had operations in the Cayman Islands and elsewhere. Nelson Sakaguchi was a director and the head of Noroest's international banking, which included overseeing its Cayman Islands branch. In fact, Sakaguchi was physically based in the Cayman Islands for part of his tenure, managing offshore transactions. This detail would prove significant, as it gave him latitude to move large sums with less oversight from the head office. Sakaguchi was an experienced banker. He had been successful in international finance for years, which is how he ended up entrusted with Noroest's offshore dealings. By outward appearances, he was the last person one would expect to fall for a scam. However, a combination of factors made him vulnerable. For one, Sakaguchi was ambitious and constantly looking for high-yield opportunities to expand the bank's profits, and no doubt to earn recognition for himself. Emerging markets like Nigeria presented high risk but potentially high reward, which fit Noroest's strategic interests at the time. Secondly, and this is crucial, the scam dangled a personal incentive, the $10 million commission, that appealed to Sakaguchi's own greed. He likely rationalized that helping Noroest secure a lucrative deal while also enriching himself was a win-win scenario. Another key element was trust in authority. The con artists deftly exploited Sakaguchi's assumption that a central bank governor and ministry officials would be genuine. Indeed, Sakaguchi had heard of Paul Ogwuma, the real CBN governor, who had a sterling reputation as a seasoned banker. So when a man claiming to be Ogwuma courted him, Sakaguchi's guard was down. As the Historic Flicks analysis notes, Sakaguchi had no reason not to feel confident meeting someone of Ogwuma's stature. The use of real names and references was a critical aspect of Nwude's social engineering. It's also possible that Sakaguchi thought he was being clever and discreet. In many advance fee frauds, victims continue paying because they feel they are in on a secret deal that others have overlooked. Sakaguchi may have believed he had stumbled onto a private gold mine, a massive project in Africa that bigger global banks hadn't discovered, giving his relatively small bank a chance to punch above its weight. This sense of exclusivity can cloud judgment. Victims start to self-justify their actions and ignore red flags to keep the fantasy alive. Sakaguchi asked to meet. He wanted to speak face-to-face with the so-called Nigerian officials. Emmanuel insisted on confidentiality. The airport project, he said, was still in the early stages. Public knowledge could sabotage its development, so they agreed to meet in a neutral location, London. In mid-1995, London became the backdrop for one of history's great frauds. Emmanuel Nwude and his team went all out to stage a convincing meeting that would erase any doubts from Nelson Sakaguchi's mind. Every detail was choreographed. Emmanuel's entourage flew to London a few days ahead of time and checked into a luxurious five-star hotel, befitting the image of high-rolling Nigerian officials. They even arranged a limousine to pick up Sakaguchi from the airport when he arrived. By treating him as an honored guest, they reinforced the notion that this deal was of great importance to Nigeria. The choice of an upscale environment and VIP treatment created a sense of legitimacy and respectability around the delegation. Each member of Emmanuel's group assumed a specific false identity for the meeting. Emmanuel himself, of course, was Governor Paul Ogwuma of the central bank. One accomplice posed as the deputy governor of the central bank, another as a director from the Ministry of Aviation, and so on. They had a total of about 5 conspirators present, including one member's wife to play an assistant. In essence, they populated a full cast of supposed senior officials so that Sakaguchi would be outnumbered by authoritative voices, all reinforcing the reality of the project. They also came armed with forged documentation and visual aids. Emmanuel's team prepared feasibility studies, business plans, blueprints for the airport, and even an aerial map of the proposed site outside Abuja. All of it was fabricated, but it looked official. They showed Sakaguchi maps and architectural drawings of runways and terminals, talked through passenger traffic projections, and discussed how profitable the first few years of operation would be. These documents gave a tangible form to the illusion, making it much harder for Sakaguchi to suspect that literally nothing was real. To further cement their credibility, the imposters had obtained photographs of actual Nigerian leaders. In one instance, Emmanuel showed Sakaguchi a photograph of himself standing beside Nigeria's then head of state and other dignitaries. This was presumably a doctored image or one taken at a public event where he managed to be in the shot. Such images would make Sakaguchi think, "Wow, this man truly is connected at the highest levels." Sakaguchi was sold. By the end of the London meeting, an agreement was reached. Banco Noroeste would invest roughly $242 million to finance the Abuja airport project. They outlined a schedule of payments and possibly even signed a fake memorandum of understanding or contract to formalize the deal. As a gesture of good faith, Emmanuel convinced Sakaguchi to make an initial deposit on the spot, reportedly around $3 million, to prove Noroeste's commitment. Sakaguchi arranged the immediate transfer of that amount, marking the first tangible loss in this saga. Sakaguchi left London convinced he was now part of a secret mega-project that would make him and his bank fabulously rich. Little did he know that every element he had witnessed was staged, and the conspiracy to steal his bank's money was only just beginning. With Sakaguchi fully committed, the spigot of money was opened. Over the next 3 years, from 1995 to 1998, Nelson Sakaguchi funneled an astonishing $242 million of Banco Noroeste's funds into accounts controlled by Emmanuel and his accomplices. This included about $191 million in cash transfers, with the remaining being logged as interest that was supposedly accruing on the investment. How does such a massive sum get stolen without immediate detection? The answer lies in Sakaguchi's dual role as both victim and inside conspirator, and his systematic cover-up of the transfers. Sakaguchi engineered the payments in multiple tranches rather than one lump sum. This was deliberate. At Banco Noroeste, any single large transfer above a certain threshold required board approval. Sakaguchi's approval limit was up to around $5 to $6 million per transaction. By keeping each individual wire below that limit, he could authorize them on his own authority without raising alarms at head office. Indeed, it's documented that 94 separate wire transfers were made in the course of the fraud. Each transfer was carefully sized so as not to trigger automatic scrutiny. Notably, an investigative report later found that from May to June 1995 alone, Sakaguchi sent $4.65 million in 7 installments, with each payment larger than the last, the largest being about $1.57 million. This pattern of incremental increases is classic in fraud. The con artists tested the waters with smaller amounts, and seeing no pushback, they escalated the amounts. He also spread the transfers across multiple destinations and accounts worldwide. Nwude's team provided various bank coordinates in different countries to receive the money. Over the course of the scam, Emmanuel and company used 17 bank accounts across countries, including the United States, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and Hong Kong, to launder the funds. For example, a large portion of the money ended up sitting in an account in the Cayman Islands, which was ironically under Noroeste's own Cayman branch. Other payments went to shell company accounts in places known for bank secrecy. By distributing the money, the fraudsters made it harder for any single bank or regulator to see the full picture. The funds were washed, layered, and obscured. Meanwhile, Emmanuel and his crew sent constant updates. Photos of construction, letters from ministers, progress reports, all fake. The real construction? There was none. But the illusion was airtight. Back in Nigeria, Nwude and his cronies were living large off the bounty. They did not simply stash the money. They invested it in assets to launder and enjoy it. The gang reportedly bought real estate in Nigeria and abroad, and acquired shares in various companies with the stolen funds. They lived like royalty, untouchable and invisible. Essentially, they were converting the cash into property and investments that would be harder to claw back later, a common tactic to launder large fraud proceeds. By the time the fraud was eventually uncovered, Nwude had amassed an empire of properties and ventures. By early 1998, Sakaguchi had sent out roughly $190 million. In February 1998, Banco Noroeste's head office finally grew concerned enough to suspend Sakaguchi for irregularities they couldn't understand. Even then, the scam's hold was so strong that after his suspension, Sakaguchi still managed to have another $250,000 sent to the fraudsters. The conmen had convinced him that if he could just send one more payment, a small one, it would unlock the now over $400 million, principal plus interest, that had supposedly accumulated and was ready to be remitted back to Brazil. It was the final futile act of a desperate man. In summary, the period from 1995 to 1998 was marked by Sakaguchi's systematic looting of his own bank under the direction of Emmanuel. Through careful structuring of transfers and outright fraud within Noroest's records, he managed to siphon nearly half the bank's capital into a black hole. The scale and duration of this theft were unprecedented. As one report called it, the world's single biggest advance fee fraud at the time. It was a convergence of a corrupt insider and external swindlers, each feeding off the other's deceit. The collapse was inevitable, and when it came, it was spectacular. By late 1997, the facade was beginning to crack, not from within Banco Noroeste, but from outside. Banco Santander, a major Spanish bank, had expressed interest in acquiring Banco Noroeste's Brazil operations. As part of due diligence for the purchase, Santander's auditors and executives started going through Noroest's books. It didn't take long for them to notice something highly unusual, a huge sum of money, on the order of $200 million, sitting in Noroest's Cayman Islands accounts without a clear explanation. In December 1997, a joint board meeting was held between Banco Noroeste and Banco Santander representatives. At this meeting, Santander's team inquired pointedly about the large offshore balances. Specifically, they found that over half of the bank's capital was not where it should be. It was purportedly tied up in an investment account in the Cayman Islands. The Noroeste side, particularly the Simonson and Cochran family members who owned the bank, was caught off guard. They recalled Sakaguchi from his vacation to come and explain this discrepancy. At first, Sakaguchi tried to bluff. As mentioned, he claimed the missing money was due to currency trading losses, the $9 to $12 million story, which obviously didn't cover anywhere near the full amount. Under increasing pressure, he then admitted that he had invested the bank's money in an airport project in Nigeria and that profits were expected soon. Once the Santander team realized Noroeste might have a massive unrecoverable hole, it threatened to derail the acquisition. Investigations were launched in multiple countries concurrently. In Brazil, authorities began probing Noroeste's records and Sakaguchi's actions. The UK got involved since the meetings occurred in London. Switzerland became involved because some money had passed through Swiss accounts. The United States was involved due to the dollar transfers and perhaps jurisdiction over some accounts or individuals. And critically, Nigeria was identified as the locus of the scam since all the money trail led there. In mid-1998, given the uncertainty, the Simonson and Cochran families decided to pay $242 million out of their own pocket to cover the loss and make the bank seem whole. This was done to guarantee that the sale to Santander could go through. Essentially, the owners refunded the entire fraud amount to the bank. Even so, Banco Noroeste never recovered its stability. The scandal eroded confidence, and by 2001, the bank collapsed entirely. Santander's planned acquisition was effectively folded into a liquidation. International investigators followed the money trail, but it led into a maze: 17 banks, dozens of shell companies, 5 different jurisdictions. Meanwhile, Nelson Sakaguchi's reckoning had come. He was arrested in 2000 while transiting through New York's JFK airport and then extradited to Switzerland. Why Switzerland? Because Swiss prosecutors had jurisdiction over the crime of money laundering, as Sakaguchi had set up accounts there that were integral to moving the funds. In Switzerland, he faced charges for his role in funneling illicit money, essentially being part of a conspiracy to launder Noroeste's money under false pretenses. Eventually, Sakaguchi would be convicted in a Swiss court and serve about 2 years in prison for money laundering. He did not escape punishment, despite being a victim of fraud. His willing participation in clandestine transfers and cover-ups made him culpable under the law. And worst of all, Nigeria didn't have any laws against advance fee fraud at the time. Emmanuel couldn't be arrested. For a while, it looked like he had pulled off the perfect crime. But in 1999, a new president came to power, Olusegun Obasanjo, and he was determined to clean up Nigeria's reputation. In 2003, he established the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. Within a year, they reopened the Nwude case. In February 2004, nearly a decade after the scam began, Nigerian authorities finally made their move. Emmanuel Nwude and his accomplices were arrested in raids coordinated by the newly empowered EFCC. Arrested alongside Nwude were Amaka Anajemba, Emmanuel Ofolue, Nzeribe Okoli, and Obum Osakwe. The sixth person, Christian Anajemba, died in a mysterious car accident in 2003. The trial began in Abuja but quickly descended into chaos. Nwude tried to bribe the judge. Jury members were approached with cash. Court sessions were interrupted by a fake bomb threat. Eventually, the case was moved to Lagos. Prosecutors offered Nwude a deal: return $80 million, serve a lighter sentence. He refused. Then came the bombshell. In a packed courtroom, Nelson Sakaguchi walked in. He took the stand and laid everything bare: emails, letters, photos, signed receipts. It was devastating. Emmanuel, cornered, agreed to return $120 million, pay a $10 million fine, and accept a 5-year prison sentence. But in reality, he served less than 2. After prison, Nwude sued the Nigerian government. He claimed they confiscated more property than agreed, and through strategic lawsuits and alleged bribes, he recovered $50 million in assets. Then in 2016, he was arrested again, this time for something darker. Police accused him of orchestrating an armed attack over a land dispute. One person was killed, several officers were injured, and still, many believe Emmanuel Nwude lives free, protected, wealthy, a ghost in the system. He sold an airport that didn't exist. He convinced a banker to wire him nearly $250 million, with nothing but a phone call, a fake identity, and a rented limo. He beat the system, then sued it, then vanished. How many more Emmanuels are still out there, living in plain sight, and still playing the game? Many believe this real-life drama deserves a dedicated Netflix show. Do you agree? We have reached the end of the story. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. We have lots of interesting videos coming up.